Sania owns an aquarium. She loves to feed her fishes and watch them swimming in water. She also has a garden at her rooftop. In fact, gardening is her favorite hobby and she spends most of her leisure hours here in the garden. So Sania is a true nature lover. Now one day she took a plant from her garden and kept it in a dark room. Well, after 2 to 3 days, she observed that the plant died. So Sania was sad. Her father explained her that in the dark room there was no sunlight. Now a plant cannot grow in absence of sunlight and therefore it died. He also explained her that if we take a fish out of an aquarium or water, then the fish will eventually die. Thus here we find that the living organisms are very much dependent on nature for their survival. Now, an aquarium is a replica of life in the ocean. Let us dive deep into the oceans and watch the aquatic life there. In deep oceans, we can find a wide variety of fishes, turtles, corals, etc. Now, these aquatic organisms absorb nutrients and gases present in water. Again, the larger fishes feed on smaller ones. Thus, we find that there is a dependence of living organisms on each other and their surrounding environment. Let's take a tour of the forest and watch the life there. Now, a forest is a home to diverse range of species like monkeys, leopards, cheetahs, tigers, hedgehogs, tortoise, etc. Even one can find many colorful birds like parrots, macaws, etc. Now, these living organisms mostly dwell in the branches of the trees and they feed on plant products like fruits, leaves, etc. Now, thus we find that in a forest also there is a dependence of living organisms on their physical environment. So in the previous two videos, we found that there is a constant interaction of living beings with their physical environment. In fact, the organisms live in harmony with nature and they are very much dependent on it. Now, this relationship between living organisms and their physical environment is known as ecosystem. So ecosystem refers to a community of living organisms where they interact among themselves and with their physical environment. Now, in an ecosystem, one can find both living and non-living elements. Now, the living organisms like birds, plants, animals, fishes, etc. that are found in an environment are known as biotic elements of nature. Whereas the non-living elements like air, water, soil, etc. that are found in an environment are referred to as abiotic elements. So, biotic elements refers to the living organisms, while abiotic elements refer to non-living elements. Now, although these living and non-living elements differ, but they are not independent. Rather, they are completely dependent on each other and they interact among themselves in nature. Thus, ecosystem also refers to interaction between biotic and abiotic elements of nature. Now, this interdependence between living organisms and nature is found both in water and on land. Now, before proceeding with our lesson, let us see if we can answer this. We will have to identify the correct statement among these options. Let us start with the first option. The first option says ecosystem refers to an envelope of air. The second option says ecosystem comprises of only abiotic elements of nature. The third option says ecosystem refers to total amount of water on earth. The fourth option says ecosystem implies interaction of living organisms with nature. So which among them do you think is the correct one? Well, let's start with the first option. The first option says ecosystem refers to an envelope of air, which is wrong. Ecosystem does not imply an envelope of air. So the first option is incorrect. The second option is ecosystem comprises of only abiotic elements, which means non-living elements like soil, water, air, etc., which is again wrong because ecosystem comprises of both biotic and abiotic elements. Now, so this option is also incorrect. The third option says ecosystem refers to the total amount of water on earth. Well, this is not the correct definition of ecosystem, so this option is also incorrect. The fourth option says ecosystem implies interaction of living organisms with nature. So yes, this option is the correct one because ecosystem actually refers to the interdependence of living organisms among themselves and with their physical environment. So the fourth option is correct. Now, as discussed previously, the interdependence of living organisms on nature is found both on land and in water. Now, the land-based community of living organisms with their surrounding environment is known as terrestrial ecosystem. Now, the term terrestrial is related to land. So, the interaction of living organisms with nature or with their surrounding environment that is observed on land is known as terrestrial ecosystem. Now, terrestrial ecosystem can be of several types. For example, forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, desert ecosystem, and mountain ecosystem. Now, in a terrestrial ecosystem, the living organisms depend on various natural factors like temperature conditions, soil type, the topography of land, etc. Again, we know that the dependence of living organism on nature is also observed in water. So, the water-based community of living organisms and their surrounding environment is known as aquatic ecosystem. So, aquatic ecosystem refers to interaction of aquatic organisms with their surrounding environment. Now, this aquatic ecosystem can be broadly classified into two types, marine ecosystem and freshwater ecosystem. Now, marine ecosystem mostly implies life in ocean or in seas, whereas freshwater ecosystem refers to life in freshwater bodies as in case of pond, rivers, streams, lakes, etc. So, aquatic ecosystem are mostly of two types, marine ecosystem and freshwater ecosystem. Now, an aquatic ecosystem is mostly dominated by the presence of fishes and aquatic plants. So this brings us to the end of today's discussion on ecosystem. In today's lesson, we first understood the meaning of ecosystem. Ecosystem refers to a region on earth where the living organisms interact with their physical environment and forms a bubble of life. Now, the ecosystem can be broadly classified into two types, terrestrial ecosystem, which implies life on land, whereas the second category is aquatic ecosystem, which refers to life in water. Now, this terrestrial ecosystem can be again of several types. For example, forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, desert ecosystem, and even mountain ecosystem. Again, the aquatic ecosystem can be divided into two types, freshwater and marine ecosystem. Again, the sizes of ecosystem varies. It can be very small as in the case of a pond, or it can be large as in the case of oceans or forest. Now, within an ecosystem, each factor depends on the other directly or indirectly. For instance, the animals depend on plants for food and shelter. Again, the plants depend on geographical factors like soil type, temperature conditions, etc. for their growth. So any climatic change will directly impact the plants and will indirectly affect the animals. Thus, we find that every factor in an ecosystem is directly or indirectly dependent on each other. So in an ecosystem, we find that plants and animals both in water and on land are dependent on nature. In fact, the nature provides us with everything like a benevolent mother. So, being a responsible child, it is our duty to protect our nature. So, that's all about ecosystem. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at DeltaStep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers or to get access to our 5,000 amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million-plus questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock tests. Get all your doubt resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, but it's rewarding too. So register for free now.